Good morning. Welcome to the Morning Scoop for Tuesday, July 6th. This is your daily Buckeye fix. I'm Tom Orr. The Minnesota game is in 58 days. The game against Michigan in 144 days. Another day, another highly ranked commit for the Ohio State football program. This time it's four-star wide receiver Kojo Antwi out of Georgia for the class of 2022. If that name sounds familiar, it's because that is the guy who Nevada Buck told you just yesterday on the Monday morning show. Told you he was going to commit to Ohio State pretty soon, and check that one off the list as well. So he is officially in as of Monday. My guest today is Buckeye Scoop recruiting analyst Bill Greene. Bill, what are the Buckeyes actually getting in Kojo Antwi?
Yeah, Tom, he just fits with the receivers they've taken under Brian Hartline. They like those guys that can play inside or outside, and I think he is the type of player that can be, a Jackson Smith-Njigba, Caleb Burton. He compares to Jaden Ballard. I mean, these guys they're similar in the fact that they're so versatile that you can move them anywhere, and I know they love those kind of guys. You know what I mean? They don't want someone pigeonholed as a big, tall outside receiver like Ben Victor, the only place you could use him, or, Mookie Cooper was strictly a slot guy, and they don't want those kind of guys. They want versatile guys that when they put four wideouts on the field, three wideouts on the field, they can put anybody anywhere and create the mismatches they want.
Yeah, and they have four wide receivers in the 2022 class: Caleb Burton, Caleb Brown, Kojo Antwi, Keon Grays. All of them between 5'11" and 6'1". So I mean, they're right in that. You don't have the 5'8" guys, you don't have the 6'5" guys. It's just right in that range. I would assume that those four are going to be it for this class. So, to you, where does that group of Burton, Brown, Antwi, and Grays rank compared to some of the Buckeyes' other recent wide receiver classes?
I mean, I think it's right there with last year's group of Ballard, Emeka Egbuka, and Harrison, who all look like they're going to be players. And I think it's right there with the class before with Smith-Njigba, G. Scott, who was looked at as a receiver at that time, and Julian Fleming, and they had Mookie Cooper in that class, who was a pure slot. And you can see that didn't work out too good. So I think, the way you described them, those 6 foot tall guys, 6'1", long, athletic guys, I really think that they love those guys, that they can move around. And in that respect, Ryan Day is controlling what's happening on the field. He is setting the mismatch. He can put 3 or 4 wideouts on that field, and he forces you to either play zone. And if you don't play zone and you play man, your number 4 guy, 4 DB, cannot cover Ohio State's 4th wide receiver out there. So it really puts Ryan Day in such an enviable position that he controls the whole field. And that's a great place to be in when you're an O coordinator.
Yeah, and you wrote a column this weekend. I thought it was a lot of fun. You shared 7 things you were convinced about, and one of them was, I'm convinced Brian Hartline is the top non-coordinator assistant coach in college football today. Now, you look at those recent recruiting classes, they've all been pretty good. They've all been, probably the best receiver group in the country, if not, and if not the top 2, top 3, year after year after year. So I have a feeling that's part of the answer. But, why do you say top non-coordinator assistant coach in college football today? And perhaps more importantly, what does Ohio State need to do to keep him around long term?
Yeah, the recruiting speaks for itself. I mean, he's bringing in as good as anyone in America brings in year after year after year. There are no sleepers. There are no projects. He doesn't bring in any guys that forces the biased fan to say, 24/7 or Buckeye Scoop or Rivals, they misevaluated him. You don't say that with these guys. These guys are at the top. So no excuses are required for these guys, or no spin for why you're taking a sleeper or a project. He doesn't take them. So the recruiting's over. And then you look at the development on the field and just how well these guys are doing, in terms of NFL prospects, all Big Ten type players, all American consideration players. So, when you add it all together, Brian is pretty special. And I know Ohio State knows that. And in terms of keeping him, I don't know. I did have a conversation with him one time that I thought was off the record. And when we got done talking, I kidded with him and said, I'm going to go print that. And he said, please do. And it was just that he would never leave Ohio State, because we talked about that. And I said, what if you get offered the head coaching job at Toledo or Akron, or, you get the offensive coordinator job at Notre Dame. And he's like, I'm never leaving. I'm never leaving. I'm happy. He goes, I don't even know if I'd want to be an offensive coordinator, even at Ohio State. He told me, he said, I might like to be like a passing game coordinator, just assist the offensive coordinator. He loves it there. He loves Columbus, raising his family there. Had a nice, successful, long career in the NFL. So, he's not like the typical assistant coach that's, been trying to feed his family for the past 7 or 8 years. And when he gets a chance to make big money, you got to take it. Well, he's not in that boat. He's very similar to Mike Vrabel in that boat, he can be very selective in what he wants. And he told me he doesn't ever want to leave Ohio State. That's where he wants to be forever. And I believed him. It was very convincing to me. So I think they will keep him. And I know Ryan Day appreciates him. And, maybe you elevate him to the passing game coordinator at some point. So, but, I think Brian, I think pretty much whatever he would want to do in coaching, I think Ryan Day would assist him in that role at Ohio State.
Well, Hartline, one of the things Hartline is loved for is recruiting well and then developing guys well when he's once they get to Ohio State.
Yep.
Another guy who is very much in that same couple buckets is Larry Johnson. Recruits real well, develops real well. Larry Johnson also had a pretty big recruiting win over the weekend. You may have heard something about that. JT Tuimoloau, top-ranked player according to 247 in the class of 2021, committed to Ohio State on Sunday. Yeah, we've talked about it a bunch, but we've been talking about it a bunch for quite a while. So I talked to Nevada about it a little bit yesterday, kind of the story behind it. But I wanted to get you. I think you had some different perspective on this. Like Nevada, you had him in the class for quite a while, never really wavered on that. And, everyone kept asking, like, are you sure? Are you really sure? And you never really wavered. So why were you so confident all those months leading up to that commitment?
Yeah, I think for me, I'm in a little different perspective. I have a different perspective than a lot of people because, I have the ability, I think, like I don't consider myself a true Buckeye homer. I think I'm pretty objective. And when I look at it, I try to put myself in the recruit's shoes. And I try to put myself in the parents' shoes, and without any scarlet covered glasses on, and I just thought everything added up for that. Once you eliminated the University of Washington, which I think they were eliminated pretty early on in the process, he showed them the respect as an in-state school that he should show them. He kept them in the whole way. He was never going there. Their history of developing defensive linemen is pretty sorry. He wasn't going to go there. So once you took them off the table, then it's wide open. And I think USC made a lot of sense. He has family in the area. He has family that has played for USC. But, when you look at Clay Helton's status and you look at who is going to develop JT for the NFL at USC, well, the guy that's there today is probably not the guy that's going to be there tomorrow. So I thought USC was out. Oregon was interesting to me. And, I think Mario Cristobal is a great recruiter. They're doing a great job with D linemen there. It's a very attractive school. I just didn't think he was going to go there and play in the Pac-12. I thought he was going to want to be playing, in the playoffs every year, best competition he could find. So then it came down to Alabama and Ohio State. And it's hard to find an advantage over Alabama. You know what I mean? Every kid that goes to Bama, you spend 4 years there, you are leaving there with at least one national championship ring, maybe 2. You will be drafted highly, if you're a starter there and a good player. But I really felt the biggest difference was scheme. And Larry Johnson being able to put him in that 4-3, let him pin his ears back and come off the edge and get a ton of sacks. And you could tell him, I'm going to turn you into Chase Young, Joey Bosa, Nick Bosa, and I'm going to put you opposite Jack Sawyer. You are not going to get doubled, or if you do get doubled, they're going to leave Jack a clear path to the quarterback. They can't double both of you. So you guys are going to wreak havoc in our system. And I just didn't think Nick Saban had that system edge at all. He's a 3-4 guy. They do sprinkle in some 4-3, but he's basically a 2-gap 3-4 guy. And JT, I never thought he wanted to play in that type of system. I think Alabama was attractive to him because they're Alabama. They're attractive to everybody. But I thought when he nuts and bolts got down to it, I really thought system fit, scheme fit, I thought Ohio State blew Alabama away. And then we had G. Scott Sr., G. Scott Jr., Emeka Ibuka, Washington people that, can see what Ohio State's all about and are experiencing what Ohio State's all about. So I just felt everything to me added up that it was going to be Ohio State. I felt that way for over a year, never really wavered. And, I don't think it was that big of a decision for the kid. I know he waited. He did his due diligence. He took his visits. But I think it was always Ohio State. And, that they got the prize. They did the best recruiting job, and they got the prize.
I wanted to end the show with a couple bigger picture questions for you. The first is, now that Tuimoloau is officially in, the 2021 class is done, in the books, is this the best recruiting class in Ohio State history?
I mean, it's pretty darn good. I mean, I'm always going to be really partial to that 2001 class because of what they did for Ohio State. Ohio State, that, for those of us that remember the 90s, wasn't very kind, and you had things were happening then that were inconceivable now, going to cruddy bowl games and getting beat by South Carolina. You had blowout home losses to Illinois and Wisconsin. You can't even fathom these things today. Well, they were happening then, and those of us that were around remember them. So that 2001 class, Zwick and Claret and Mike DeAndrea and those guys, boy, it just changed the whole perception of Ohio State nationally. It jump-started Jim Tressel's career. Jim Tressel's first year at Ohio State was not that pretty. And, it just changed everything for Ohio State. So I'm partial to that group. And then it's also pretty easy to look back on a class that played 4 years at Ohio State and comparing them to guys that have never played it down yet. So it's tough to say. But, I mean, this 2021 class is so special. And these guys, there are so many 4- and 5-star guys that have a chance to be really special college players. So in the end, it probably will be a better class than 2001, even though, we kind of have a nice spot in our hearts for that 2001 class for how they changed Ohio State football.
Well, all right. So the 2021 class had 6 players ranked as 5 stars, including Tuimoloau, 5 of the top 10 overall, according to 247, which is nuts.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, that was not the true in the composite, but in 247's own rankings, 5 of the top 10 overall players all went to Ohio State. Mm-hmm. The 2022 class has 4 guys ranked as 5 stars so far, so 4 instead of 6. There's obviously a long way to go, a bunch of guys that they could add, guys they could lose before signing day. Is it to you possible that the 2022 class ends up passing the 2021 class, for whatever place that is in your rankings, 2, 3, or potentially ends up a 1? Or is that not realistic?
It's hard to say right now because there's so many gaps that need to be filled. You're talking about a complete class in 2021 against an incomplete class in 2022. We sure think there's a lot of big fish still on the line. So you hate to say that. I mean, it's just that even the 2020 class, I mean, that's all you need. If you can have 2020 classes for the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years, you're going to compete for national titles. It's the same teams getting the same top players year after year. We see that 5 or 6 teams make the playoff. There aren't 25 different teams making a run every year, and I don't see that happening. So Ohio State's very fortunate. They're in the halves, and I don't see it changing, But the more difference makers you can add, I mean, obviously it gives you so much higher chance of success. So the 2022 class is set up. You got the number 1 player in Quinn Ewers. So you're already starting off with 1, and then you see who you get, to fill out that class. But the recruiting's off the chain right now. So I see no change in Ohio State as a playoff team in the foreseeable future. And I see nobody in the Big Ten, challenging them there. And the goal is to win the Big Ten. That should put you in the playoffs. And I don't see how that changes going forward.
Yeah, I'm scanning through right now, like the average player rank for the class of 2021. Ohio State, the difference between Ohio State and Michigan in the Big Ten, which is 1 to 2 in average player rank, is basically the same as the difference between number 2 Michigan and number 9 Rutgers. Like that's the gap. Ohio State is number 1 by such a wide margin that it's 1 to 2 is the same as 2 to 9, and that's just in the Big Ten. But
and I think it's legit. And like I said, the goal is obviously they want to win a national title. I mean, everybody does. But realistically, the prime goal is to win that Big Ten. You know what I mean? And then you're looking at one of the 4 spots. If they expand the playoffs, which it looks like they're going to, or maybe they already have, then you're definitely in. And you got to be in it to win it. And then you're looking at health and being able to be at your best when you get to the playoffs and all that stuff in terms of winning a title. But the main goal is to get there. And I don't see Ohio State, I don't know. I mean, it will take upsets, to keep them out of the playoffs going forward. How are they going to lose 2 games? A 1 loss, you still got a shot. You're going to almost have to lose 2 to not make the playoffs. And boy, it's hard for me to see them losing 1, let alone 2.
Yeah, you go back to the last time they missed the playoff, 2018. They lost that Purdue game in an expanded playoff. They obviously make it that year as the Big Ten champion. They would make it in 2017 as the Big Ten champion. I mean, I think you could have gone back and in the proposed 12-team playoff. That's not final yet, but in the proposed 12-team playoff, they would have made it every year since 2013. They would have been in the field somewhere. So
right.
Yeah, as you said, you got to be in it to win it, and they would have been in it pretty much every year. So, yeah.
And if you look at the 2 years they didn't make it, you had some really terrible losses there. They weren't even normal losses where you lose on a last-second field goal. Those were total butt kickings. Purdue murdered them, Iowa murdered them, Oklahoma, won by pretty good margin on Ohio State's field. It's hard to envision them losing a game right now in the Big Ten. I certainly don't see them losing a game by 20, 24, 30 points. That is just inconceivable. So, like I say, they're sitting in such a good position right now. You keep stockpiling talent like this. The coaching seems to be really, really good. And I think what we're seeing will continue. And I think the gap in the Big Ten, I don't think that's, funny math. I think it's accurate. I think the gap is that huge.
And that expanded playoff could be coming relatively soon, sooner than you think. They've talked about 2023 as the earliest it could possibly come. I know that sounds like in the far, far future. Jack Sawyer, JT Tuimoloau, and that class, that would be their 3rd year. So those guys would be on that potential first expanded playoff Ohio State team in 2023. It may be coming sooner than you think. And there's probably going to be a couple interesting seasons between then and now as well. So, hey, might be a good time to join BuckeyeScoop.com. Boom, transition. How about that? We have a fantastic, fantastic community. We had some really inspiring, wonderful story. You heard about it on Monday's Morning Scoop with Nevada on what happened with his 4 tickets to the Oregon game that we've been telling you about. I thought that was a pretty cool story, pretty representative of the community we've got there at BuckeyeScoop.com. Really fun community on our Ask the Insiders board. Bill does a weekly chat on Thursdays, answering your questions about just about anything. And those are always fun and lively. And there's been plenty to talk about. And could be more commitments on the way in the near future. But it has been a very busy and exciting and fun year at BuckeyeScoop.com. And it's probably only going to get better because guess what? The season's actually not that far away. We're only about just a little over 3 weeks from the Big Ten Media Days getting started in Indianapolis and all that stuff. That is all coming very quickly. So you can sign up today at BuckeyeScoop.com. Also, do make sure you check out our YouTube channel at youtube.com/BuckeyeScoop. We post all of our shows there, all of our podcasts, all of our interviews. When Mark Givler goes to the Elite 11 in the opening, he posts his highlights there. You post interviews with players and coaches there. It is all there. We'll have Mark on tomorrow's show to talk about that stuff. But if you want to get a sneak peek at Quinn Ewers in action and CJ Hicks in action and some of the other guys from Ohio State that were out there, you can find that all at youtube.com/BuckeyeScoop. What you need to do, though, is subscribe there. Hit that subscribe button. Then you'll get notified every time we post a new video, and then you won't miss a thing. And it's all free. It's all at youtube.com/BuckeyeScoop. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We will talk to you tomorrow.